Alright, hello beautiful people, it's Mercury here, back again just to show you a little bit about what is going on in the astrology for this current time. And before we begin, I actually want to just touch on the period that we're sort of exiting out of, the mini chapter that we're exiting out of. So as you all are probably aware, we had a Mercury retrograde, but not just that, I would say a particularly intense Mercury retrograde, which ended on February 20th. And in my opinion, after that, we continue to be sort of isolated and maybe a little bit withdrawn, working on very personal issues in our lives, maybe figuring a lot of stuff out, having a lot of breakthroughs, but it was kind of heavy, it was intense. We were still a little bit in our heads for, I would say, the rest of February after Mercury went direct on the 20th of February. However, this, in my opinion, came to an end this past weekend. So the weekend of February 27th, 28th, we had the Virgo full moon on the 27th, and then on the 28th, we had the moon in Virgo opposing Neptune. And so both of those, highlight the Virgo Pisces axis, which is all about reflection and integrating and stuff like that. So again, it's working on personal issues. We could be a little bit compartmentalized, a little bit in our heads, a little bit dealing with, dealing with our shit, dealing with life issues. However, like I said, March 1st, it's so fitting when this happens. So we're starting a new month, and there's very much a new energy. And this is mostly marked by the moon entering Libra. So the moon gets out of that Virgo Pisces axis. It gets out of those oppositions with the planets in Pisces, enters Libra, where it's much more airy, more carefree. There's more room to kind of be yourself or do whatever. Do whatever your normal thing is. Also, Mercury has been direct since February 20th, like I mentioned, but by now it's finally gaining a little bit of momentum. It's 2 degrees past where it's stationed direct, and now it's getting farther from Saturn and approaching Jupiter. So again, that just adds to, we're back full speed ahead, more getting to our normal rhythm, whatever that may be for any of us in particular, whatever that is for you. We're getting back to, being ourselves and doing what's maybe more normal for us. All this air energy is kind of allowing us to do whatever we want to some degree. And like I said, Mercury approaching Jupiter, much more positive, expanding, leaving Saturn, just kind of lightening the mood. Also, I want to mention, since February 20th, when Mercury went direct, we now have all the planets going direct, and that will last until April 27th. So again, February 20th all the way through April 27th of this year, 2021, we have all planets going direct, and so that's very powerful. If you can remember, about this time last year, something similar happened where we had all planets going direct for an extended period of time. And what that means is we're very much going forward. So there's going to be new stuff happening. We are getting out of that, retrograde energy where we're kind of in our heads and reflecting over the past. We're done with that. We're moving on full speed ahead. New stuff happening, new experiences, The downside is maybe we're not fully integrating everything. We're not fully getting, perceiving everything that's going on. However, it can be exciting and very productive to have that forward moving energy, new stuff happening. All right, now let's get into the specifics here. This is the chart for March 1st, 2021 in the morning hours. Let's see. I don't have any specific major aspects the first couple days of March. Like I said, there's just a lightning energy. March 1st is very different than February 28th for this year. Airy energy, moving forward, more spontaneity, more room to be ourselves, etc. This just continues tomorrow, March 2nd, 2021. In general, a theme that I wanted to talk about is we have now that huge buildup of planets that we had for most of February, where we had like 5 or 6 planets in Aquarius, that has dissipated now. So as you can see here, we've got 3 planets in Aquarius, 3 planets in Pisces, which is not nearly as intense as it was, but it's still definitely a grouping of planets in those 2 signs. And so whenever the moon is either in an air or water sign, it will reinforce this, grouping, this highlighting of air and water elements, especially once the moon gets to the signs of Aquarius and Pisces, which I'll talk about later. But yeah, in general, just having 4 planets in one element is a little bit, it definitely draws your attention to those themes. And what those themes entail, basically, I find it very fitting because we are very much in the season of Pisces now. Happy birthday to all the Pisces. I forgot to say that in the past videos. But yeah, we're very much in the Pisces season. So what does that mean? So winter in general, but also especially Pisces, is about dreaming. It's a dream time. It's a time of relative inactivity. So if you look at nature, of course, it depends on where you are. If you're by the tropics, you might not even experience winter really. But just in general, winter is sort of, at least theoretically, it's a time of inactivity. So the trees lose their leaves, bears will hibernate. Many of us might become more lethargic, depending on what latitude we live in. And just in general, with the signs in astrology that correspond to Aquarius, it's all about kind of dreaming and manifesting the future. Again, it's the time of inactivity. And so you're sort of just manifesting what you wish to begin in spring, because spring is the time where everything becomes active again in Aries. And then you really start actually manifesting tangible things that, actually start doing things rather than just kind of this almost sleepy dream time that we experience in winters, and especially in Pisces. And so with this emphasis on air and water, this just kind of exacerbates that theme. Air and water are the least physical elements. They're the most, theoretical or abstract. Air, of course, is pretty much totally non-physical in a way. I mean, I guess maybe you could technically say it's literally physical, but they represent themes of either thoughts or emotions or ideas or spirituality, all this stuff, which is not very tangible. It's abstract, it's complex, and it very much does have to do with the dream time, dreaming or thinking, feeling, dreaming, manifesting, not through your direct actions, but through intention more so, I would say. So I just think this is very fitting for a Pisces season. This is very much a time for manifesting and maybe inactivity, but like I said, everything is moving full speed ahead. So depending on where you are, Pisces is it's the last sign of winter, and it's a mutable sign. And what that means is it's basically Pisces' job to transition from winter to spring. The last third of each season is basically just kind of wrapping it up and alluding to the beginning of the next season. So depending on what latitude you're in, of course, spring will come earlier or later. But just in general, wherever you are, whatever spring means for your latitude, as long as you're in the northern hemisphere, I am being biased towards most of us live in the northern hemisphere, so I'm going to go with that. But for most of us, whatever spring is for you in your latitude, Pisces will allude to that. So what I mean by that is, like, you might have a little bit of winter weather and then a little bit of spring weather, and that, this back and forth. We tend to see that in the mutable signs, where it's like, for Pisces, for instance, it feels like winter. No, it feels like spring. No, it feels like winter. Which is it? It's kind of both, but neither. That shows you that's what a mutable sign is all about. It's about being open-minded. It's about maybe being a little wishy-washy, or open to both sides, stuff like that. And just in general, again, it's a time of manifesting. It's a time of setting intentions and maybe being inactive, but maybe being active more internally or spiritually, emotionally, or mentally, and having that intention being brought forward in Aries. If our society was more connected to nature, we would experience that much more literally. It can be a little subtle to us now in our industrialized society, but it's still definitely prevalent. And if you start paying attention to these things, you will definitely notice it. Aries is definitely a time to begin things, and so we are approaching that. We're preparing for that. That's what Pisces is all about. Anyway, so I just wanted to say, depending on whether the moon is in air or water, it will highlight on the air or water themes. Air being more lighter, more spontaneous, more active, more sociable. Water being more deep and emotional. But again, both are non-physical. Both are about thoughts and or emotions. You get the picture. It's about manifesting. And so it's very much Pisces season. It's very much, preparing to close winter and begin spring. All right, so enough of that. Let's go forward. As you can see here, March 2nd, Mercury is approaching Jupiter. I really like this. So Jupiter and Mercury, they're not technically in domicile in Aquarius. I mean, some modern astrologers will say Mercury's exalted there, but at any rate, I do think these two planets, and definitely Saturn, since Saturn is in domicile in Aquarius, but all three of these planets do very well in Aquarius, I would say. So their traits are manifested easily and strongly. And so, again, also with Mercury going direct and it's gaining momentum, it's approaching Jupiter, we can think bigger, we can be more active, we can be more just ourselves. And whether you're introverted or extroverted, you have more freedom to do whatever it is you want to do, whether you are socializing a lot right now or working a lot right now or just sitting at home reflecting. Whatever it is that you do, whatever your thing is, I feel like you're encouraged to do that. Be yourself. That's what air signs are all about. And with Mercury going forward, we just have more momentum in general. March 3rd, a couple things happen. So the moon leaves Libra and enters Scorpio. So again, when the moon was in Libra on the 2nd, we had 4 planets in air. So more of that airy spontaneity, lighter energy, more sociable. As it enters Scorpio, it gets much deeper, maybe heavier, but more dreamy, more intuitive, more maybe compassionate, more emotional. And it just reinforces, it starts to trine Venus, Sun, and Neptune in Pisces for the next couple days, March 3rd and 4th, around there. Moon will be transiting Scorpio. And it also, trining the Sun, we experience, usually there is a very tangible, just a pleasant day or two where the moon trines the Sun. Of course, it depends on your chart specifically, but just in general, it's a relatively easy time. There's not that chaos that we experience during the quarter or full moons. So the moon is in Scorpio. Scorpio can be a little bit intense, but here it's mostly just in the context of, being emotional, maybe allowing those deeper emotions and feelings, but in the context of dreaming and manifesting the future, I think. I mean, this whole time is very future oriented now, I think. It's very much about alluding to spring. I think that's where we're going, because like I said, all the planets are going direct. Mercury's starting to speed up. We're very much starting to gain momentum and look toward the future. So even though there might be a focus on water signs, to me, I see it as it's with the intention or for the purpose of proceeding, manifesting, stuff like that. That's my approach to it. March 3rd, let's see, go later in the day and maybe much later. So the night of March 3rd, so it could be early March 4th, depending on where you are, Mars will enter Gemini. And yeah, I think that's kind of a big deal. It almost makes so much sense just because, like I said, there's that focus on air and water to some extent. But with Mars entering Gemini, that just reinforces this focus on, not so much on earth or fire right now. Mostly just on thoughts, feelings, ideas, the emphasis is very much non-physical right now. Mars entering Gemini. Mars usually takes about 2.5 signs to transit each sign. And so Mars entering Gemini marks a period of being more socially active, having more, wherever Mars is, we have more passion and drive in that area. It can also cause conflicts potentially just because we're more active or more maybe competitive in those areas, more prone to debating maybe. And with Mars and Gemini in particular, you definitely get that debating energy. You can get a really sharp wit, like a clever, funny wit that people can have. Or it could be debating or arguing, stuff like that. That could be some of the more challenging aspects of Mars and Gemini, or it could just be a time of increased social activity in general. And Mars is approaching the North Node, so I like this. North Node is generally a positive, easy energy to work with, generally speaking. There are downsides to it, but overall, it's one of the easier energies. And so Mars approaching there, I think it is nice just to have that more active, spontaneous energy. Air can be, it can be fun. I think it's meant to be, to promote individualism and promote free will, spontaneity. Do whatever you want. Air signs can also be very introverted or extroverted. So it's like do you whatever you want to do. If you want to be sociable, do it. Mars and Gemini, is good for that. Again, downsides of it could be arguing, disagreeing, but still, I personally like that. And of course, again, it depends on your astrology. Depends on if you're Aries or not. If you have any planets in Gemini, you would be more prone to feeling that chattiness, or that maybe willingness to debate, but also just the wanting to share ideas and almost be competitive with ideas, be clever, be funny, have good conversations. Let's see here. Okay, I think that's all. Oh, the moon. No. Okay, sorry, I was a little disorganized there. Going forward, March 4th, moon enters Sagittarius, and this is very interesting. So a couple things happen on March 4th. This is, of course, in the evening, and that depends on where you are. But, so first of all, this chart actually has Mercury and Jupiter exactly conjunct in Aquarius. I really like that. Mercury and Jupiter I see sort of as opposing yet complementary forces. Mercury rules Virgo and Gemini. Jupiter rules Sagittarius and Pisces. So, those signs oppose each other. So Mercury thinks small, it's details. Jupiter thinks big, it's the big ideas. The philosophies, Mercury's like facts and Jupiter's like philosophy. So they're two opposing yet complementary sides, and they're both all about learning and being open-minded to other ways of thinking. And so in particular, of the opposing energies, Jupiter and Mercury do mesh pretty well together, I would say, especially in Aquarius, where neither of them is in domicile, but both of them are very functional there, and it's easy for them to be there. It's not their home, but I would say it's a place where they're both comfortable, though. It's not their home, it's not their vacation house, but it's also not unfamiliar to them. It's good territory, and it's neutral territory. So I like that. It's a good time for friendship, socializing, acts in your community. So whether that's working or going to school, or hopefully we are available to do these types of things with COVID and everything. But I just really like that. That's really good for interacting with the world. It could even be online. I do think there's some kind of harmony, even though Mars in Gemini, like I said, could be argumentative. I think with Mercury and Jupiter conjunct in Aquarius, we're more open-minded. We are more maybe curious, or just wanting to have social cohesion, and to cooperate with others and to be a part of the community. I think that it's a really positive energy just for all of that, and that's kind of where since Mercury's there, that's kind of where the tone of the day is, in a sense. Moon also contributes to that, but Mercury is kind of the pace or the rhythm of the day, and so the rhythm or momentum of the day is very much in favor of, I wouldn't say it's to the extent of like kumbaya, let's all gather around a fire, but I think maybe it's just a setup for a more positive work day, or pleasant social interactions, pleasant interactions with the community, etc. Also, we've got Moon entering Sagittarius on the 4th, and right as soon as it enters Sagittarius, it opposes Mars, which, like I said, has just entered Gemini. And then that's interesting. So it's a direct aspect, but also it's particularly interesting just because when we have a planet, especially at the first or last degree of a sign, it's definitely noteworthy. And when it makes aspects there, the Moon and Mars are both pretty much entering a sign at basically the same time, both at 0 degrees of Gemini and Sagittarius, opposing one another at the same time. So what does that mean? Again, kind of reinforcing what I said with the Mercury conjunct Jupiter. It's a time of open-mindedness and shared ideas. It's a more active, more social, but also curious and just open-minded, willing to work with others who are different from you, that type of thing. We might be more prone to conversating with someone who has different beliefs than us, or a different background, and just being able to be neutral enough for the conversation to work, but also interested enough to keep the momentum going. So I really like that energy. Of all the signs that oppose one another, I think Gemini and Sagittarius flow the best because they're mutable, so they're open-minded, they're curious about other ways of life, other ways of thinking, but they're also both yang. So they're both the yang, or active or masculine, mutable signs. So not only are they both open-minded to other ways of thinking, but they're also both active and getting out there, learning other people's points of view, having different experiences than what they may be accustomed to. Both Gemini and Sagittarius pretty much live for that. And so when you have two planets opposing each other at 0 degrees of those signs, we're very open-minded, and it just flows so well. It doesn't aspect the Mercury Jupiter conjunction, but the themes of it just flow so well with that. I think we're of course, again, as I always say, it depends on your own astrology, but in general there's social cohesion, there's mixing of different cultures or ideas. We want to get out there and have interesting conversations with a variety of topics, variety of people. We want to get out there and have different experiences. I don't know for you where you are, what the COVID situation is, but in some areas the COVID policies are lightening a little bit, and I think these energies are perfect for that, because in general we're moving from a more heavier time where we're more isolated, like the past month was mostly, well, it's pretty much all mostly just isolated and heavy, and now we're moving into a time where we want to be more active and more free flowing, and have conversations, have interactions with our community and with each other. Again, there's the Pisces influence, so that is a little bit less active. It's more dreamy and stuff, but that's mixing with this very direct motion of very active motion. Lots of things happening right now. I think I've said enough on that. Let's just go forward one day, I think. Yes. So here, again, Mercury's still gaining momentum, leaving the Jupiter conjunction now, but we are gaining momentum, all planets direct, of course. But here we've got a third quarter moon, so sun at 15 degrees Pisces, and then let's just go forward. I'm maybe slightly OCD. I like to get the exact degrees here. So here you can see what, at least where I am. I want to say this is either for the East Coast or West Coast, but depending on where you are, sometime on March 5th, there is a third quarter moon exact at 15 degrees Sagittarius with the sun at 15 degrees Pisces. And we also have the nodes are at 15 degrees of mutable signs as well. So the north node is 15 degrees Gemini, south node 15 degrees Sagittarius, with the moon conjunct its own south node, squaring the sun. So what does that mean? So it means a few things. So usually when we have planets square the nodes, it's often difficult to interpret because it's a midpoint. It's not as intense as a planet being conjunct one of the nodes, but it's a turning point. It's a midpoint. It could also be a point of indecisiveness or being stuck between two different choices. That's the sun I'm talking about. That's squaring the nodes. It's making this midpoint where it marks the halfway point between eclipse seasons, basically. So it's this, we're the farthest away from the eclipse season as we could possibly be, and so it's a turning point. It's a midpoint between the eclipse seasons, basically. The eclipse seasons, which signify so much change and volatility and newness. We're right in between that, and so we're in a period of stability, but some kind of changeover involving that. However, the moon is activating the nodes, very directly. And first of all, third quarter moons in general, it's a time of change. It can be sort of mundane because this happens to us. The third quarter moon happens to us once a month, and quarter moons in general happen every 2 weeks, whether it's first quarter or third quarter. And so it's just a time of more volatility. It could be a time of nervousness or just activity in general. I've noticed children or pets will be more active late at night. That's very common. There's just more energy. There's more time for making adjustments or changes. The square energies are like that in general. It's sort of the energy of Mars. So it could be turbulent or nervous or agitated, but it could also be a good time to make changes. Just for being active in general, get out and do something. You might be restless, but the reason why is because you need to change something about your situation. So as long as you know that, you can go about it accordingly. And like I said, this happens very frequently, so it's not typically life-changing unless it aspects something in your chart. It's just something we go through, within a monthly basis. However, this is particularly interesting, like I said, just because it touches on the nodes. And so, of course, it's not an eclipse or anything like that, but it may be a little bit eclipse-like. So it may have some fated energy or karmic energy, karmic events happening. There could be some little life changes here. The moon is conjunct the south node, so it could just be bringing out our past or bringing out, maybe negative experiences or challenging experiences, but experiences which help to realign us onto our proper path. Also, the moon being in a yang sign, a fire sign of Sagittarius, it is very active. So like I said, we might just feel a little bit more wound up now. We might have to deal with some challenging issues, but again, it's mundane. It's not super big. This isn't outer planets we're dealing with. It's just the moon and the sun and the nodes. And so, not a huge thing, but maybe some turbulence there. Again, just approach it from the mindset of you may feel anxious, but it's a time to be productive. It's an opportunity to be productive and to make changes. And I think that sums it up pretty much. What else do I have? That's pretty much all I have for March 5th. Going forward, March 6th, moon will continue to be in Sagittarius all day. So Sagittarius is a nice blending. It's almost like a compromise between Pisces and Aquarius in a way, because it's a dominant active energy like Aquarius. Like Aquarius, it's philosophical, it's active, it wants to go out in the world and make changes and be spontaneous, have new experiences, stuff like that. So it has a lot in common with Aquarius. And so those types of themes may kind of dominate the energies of March 5th and 6th. However, like Pisces, Sagittarius is emotional, it's mutable, so it's open-minded, it's about learning, having different experiences, it's about being spiritual. Sagittarius can be objective like Aquarius, but it can be very subjective like Pisces. It can be very rational like Aquarius, but it can be very, more emotional like Pisces, or passionate like Pisces. So it's kind of a mix between those two energies. Hopefully that makes sense. But just for March 5th and 6th, and it may be more active or noticeable just because it is a fire sign, and like I said, it's touching on the south node in Sagittarius. So we may be more active, more in the world, more socializing, more doing things in general, whether it's working or socializing. We're just more active in general, but also thinking in the back of our minds, manifesting, through more covert or non-physical means of, manifesting more activity to come. So this is an active time, but we're also manifesting something maybe potentially somewhat big just in the near future, because spring is coming. Okay. And going forward, March 7th, moon enters Capricorn. Capricorn is getting a little bit lighter these days. I mean, it's not 2020 anymore, so we don't have that buildup in Capricorn. So that's nice. I mean, for so long, I was saying every time the moon entered Capricorn, I would go through this spiel about, the moon's in detriment and it's going through these heavy planets. Now, it is in detriment, but it doesn't have so much heavy energy to contend with. And the moon on March 7th will be distancing itself from that third quarter aspect, and from the square aspect and from the south node. And so in general, although the moon is in detriment in Capricorn, I think it's more of a relaxed energy than the 5th and 6th. March 7th, the moon will start to sextile the sun, which is more harmonious. So again, the moon is in Capricorn. It could be a little bit difficult or challenging for us, but I think in general, it could also be easier, just in the sense that it's more low-key, it's more winding down. March 5th and 6th look more active, again, maybe could be more exciting, or a chance to do something that you want to do. But again, it could be nervous or anxious. Going into March 7th, it's more low-key, more relaxed, maybe a little heavier, but so much stuff is in air and water that, a little bit of Capricorn, even though the moon is in detriment there, I don't think it's such a bad thing. I think it's low-key, it's nice. It's kind of like, it's a good time to take a break if you can, maybe on March 7th. Oh, and it's a Sunday, so yeah, it's a good, just chill on Sunday. That's what I'd recommend. Just kind of chill at home. That'd be a good time for that. Be productive or social or whatever on Friday and Saturday, the 5th and 6th, and then just chill on the 7th. That's what I would recommend. And going forward on the 8th, so on the 7th and 8th, mostly on the 8th, we've got moon approaching Pluto. Moon will conjoin with Pluto in Capricorn. Also, we've got the sun beginning to approach Neptune now. It hasn't conjoined yet, but it's approaching there. So that kind of just adds to we're already in the season of Pisces, but with the sun approaching Neptune, it's just extra Pisces. Neptune has so much in common with Pisces. So more dreamy, more intuitive, more emotional, more delusional, maybe more but also more strongly manifesting. I think you can manifest more strongly in Pisces. It's so emotional and it's so aware in that aspect. It's so aware, like non-physically or emotionally, spiritually, stuff like that. So you can manifest better, and that could be a good thing or a bad thing, as long as you're cognizant of your manifesting ability and you're aware of your intentions. I think Pisces in general and Sun approaching Neptune could be a really good thing. It could be a really powerful time for manifestation. But just beware, because if you become out of control, if you start focusing on what you do not want, you will manifest whatever it is you're focusing on. And so with the Sun, especially with the Sun approaching Neptune in Pisces, know your intentions. Don't get caught up in what you don't want, because you will manifest. The manifesting is extra potent at this time. That's what I would say. Anyway, but specifically for March 8th, we do have the moon conjunct Pluto. Again, I'm not too scared about this. I mean, yeah, the moon's in detriment. It's conjunct Pluto, which is a heavier energy that could have some ramifications, but it's not aspecting anything really. And the nodes aren't there anymore like 2020. Saturn is not there anymore. So it's a minor blip, I would say. I mean, the moon is a fast moving planet. If you have planets at 25, 26 degrees, 27 degrees of Capricorn or the cardinal signs, you may feel this, but again, it's a quick moving transit. It's just going to be on the 8th sometime. It could be some difficulty or some heaviness, maybe a low point, something difficult emotionally where it's like, a time where you have to put your emotions aside and just kind of be tough and do the proper, like, responsible thing, and so something where you have to put your own needs aside maybe. But again, it's not a big deal. The moon's very quick. This is a very small aspect. It's not aspecting anything. I wouldn't worry about it. But it is worth mentioning. Going into March 9th, the moon enters Aquarius. In this chart, you can see moon is conjunct Saturn. And as soon as the moon enters Aquarius on March 9th, we do have 4 planets in Aquarius. So this is what I mentioned earlier, where 3 planets is a grouping. People in astrology always argue about whether a stellium is 3 or 4 planets, but this you can't argue about. March 9th, we definitely have a stellium in Aquarius, 4 planets there. Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn, and the moon. So I like this though, and I'll tell you why. I'll explain it. So this will be reminiscent of the energies that we experienced in most of February, especially the first half of February, where again we had like 5 or 6 planets in Aquarius. And so this will be like that. However, a lot has changed since then. What's changed is Mercury's now ahead of the pack. So Mercury's direct. We're moving forward. We've got more energy. We are less compartmentalized. We've kind of dealt with all our stuff. We dealt with Mercury retrograde already. Hopefully we resolved those conflicts and blocked our X's again. Yeah, that was an attempt at humor. But yeah, hopefully we've dealt with Mercury retrograde and integrated those experiences. Now we're moving forward. And so we're hopefully kind of done with all that. Maybe we're dealing with some of the same themes that we were dealing with in February, but we're hopefully gaining momentum now. We've learned from those lessons. And so now the moon coming back to the same area is highlighting those same themes, but hopefully it's just doing so in order to show us how much we've grown since this time a month ago, if that makes sense. So think back what was going on a month ago. And I think for most of us, we've hopefully, maybe it's been difficult, but I would say hopefully we've gained some knowledge, we've gained some experience, and we're moving forward in those parts of our lives. So that's what I'd say about that. Even the moon conjunct Saturn, or maybe even particularly the moon conjunct Saturn, it is kind of difficult, but it may be more difficult getting into it. So March 9th, moon first enters Aquarius. It has to approach Saturn, which can be maybe more challenging. As long as you're being responsible and taking care of what you need to do, managing your resources effectively, Saturn aspects really aren't so scary, as long as you're just doing what you need to do. But that's the more challenging side of it. And then after that, going into March 10th, the moon then will conjoin the Jupiter and Mercury, which again is a lot more sociable, free flowing, more positive. We may be extra busy March 10th in general, maybe March 9th too, but especially March 10th, just because the moon is conjoining Jupiter and Mercury. We've got Mercury, moon, and Jupiter all pretty much conjunct within 3 or 4 degrees of each other, or I guess 5 degrees of each other, but still it's kind of a grouping there for sure. So yeah, moon, especially moon conjunct Mercury in an air sign, we may be more busy, very mentally busy, talking a lot, writing a lot, or just traveling a lot in our community, seeing more people, doing more things. There might be more clutter or maybe more mental burnout. Again, there's pros and cons to it. It's a good time for being productive, being sociable, getting out and doing whatever it is you're going to do. Again, it's very individualistic since it's an Aquarius. So whatever your thing is, it's time to do a lot of that, more of that, stuff like that. And yeah, so it could be good because it's very productive or very sociable. It could be bad just because you want to also spend time decompressing and don't get too frazzled or mentally burn out. There could be a sort of electricity in the air, so it's important that we drink water and don't get too wound up, I guess. But otherwise, it seems like a pretty positive energy, free-flowing energy. Definitely an opportunity to maybe have some breakthroughs. With the Aquarius influence and Mercury and Jupiter, it's all about learning and having breakthroughs in our lives, gaining momentum, making progress in different aspects of our lives. And so it's a very active time, and again, like I said, it could touch on things which happened a month ago, but in a very forward moving way. Also on March 10th, we have Sun finally conjoining Neptune. So again, what I was saying, we would feel this approaching from a couple days before. So starting on March 7th or 8th, going forward for the next 5 days, maybe something like that. Peaking on March 10th, we have the energy of Sun conjunct Neptune in Pisces, which is ruled by Neptune in modern astrology. So yeah, like I said, it's very much about dream time, and it would be a bad time for, let me check my calendar. March 10th is a Wednesday, so hopefully nobody's out partying. I would just say it's a really bad time to go out and party super hard, to drink or do drugs, something along those lines, or even have too much caffeine or something, just because it could be very easy to lose ourselves with these Piscean energies, especially with Sun conjunct Neptune. It can be easy for us to get a little mentally unstable. So it's healthy to relax. Pisces is one of the more inactive signs. It's more low key. It can be very active as well, but I would suggest just chill on that day. Still, everything's moving forward, and so if you're working, it's a good day to get some work done. But the rhythm is very much flowing at that time. But don't push yourself too hard and don't overindulge, is what I would say, because like I said, there is that tendency where if you were to drink or do drugs, you could very easily just hit it way too hard, or get too drunk, or get totally lost in it and just get possessed in a way by whatever you're doing and do things that you don't mean to do. Get lost in the lunacy of it, I guess. No pun intended, not really reflecting the moon necessarily, because the moon hasn't entered Pisces yet, but yeah, just that escapism, I guess. If you may have tendencies to want escapism in Pisces in general, but specifically March 10th, and that's okay, but there are healthy ways to do that. So escapism is something that can be very unhealthy, where if you're avoiding responsibilities, drinking, doing drugs, even sleeping too much, or whatever it is, escapism can be very much a bad thing. If you're neglecting, your Virgo duties on the other side of it, it could be very much a bad thing. But you can escape in healthy ways. Reading, writing. I pretty much rambled on about this in my last video, but even exercising. Get out, do something where you can just chill and zone out. Get in the zone, with whether it's sports or golfing or anything, gardening, cooking. There's got to be, I think it's really important we all have something like that where we can just kind of get lost in what we're doing and just forget ourselves for a moment. And like I said, some people do that through alcohol or drugs, and that's a way of doing the same thing, but it's unhealthy. So find a healthy way of doing that. Ideally, it will balance the Virgo Pisces axis. So it may involve, doing something physical, but which is relaxing for the mind and the soul. That's what I would suggest doing March 10th with the Sun conjunct Neptune. Relaxing music, writing, etc. Something. Find something that you enjoy along those lines. Okay, going forward, On the 11th, Moon does enter Pisces. So again, we've got now, there was a clustering of 4 planets in Aquarius. Now March 11th, that shifts, and we've got 4 planets in Pisces. So very much a big Pisces focus. We're approaching the Pisces new moon. Also, Venus is approaching Neptune. So, the planets are starting to get really densely clustered in Pisces. And there's no planets in any other water signs, but still there's more. I guess there's also 4 planets in air, since Mars is in Gemini, and there's 3 planets in Aquarius. But so again, in general, the focus is, it's very much Pisces season. We're very much manifesting. There's very much a focus on the non-physical aspects of our reality. Let's see. Okay, going forward, March 12th. It looks like the new moon will happen early on March 13th. So March 12th, again, super strong Pisces themes. Strong Pisces themes starting on the 11th when the moon enters Pisces and going forward until the new moon on March 13th. So again, March 11th, 12th, 13th, very, very strong Pisces. So very strong intuition, spirituality, escapism, emotion. Sort of Pisces is all about going inward and reflecting and integrating in order to prepare for the outward expansion that will occur in spring, after the spring equinox when the sun enters Aries. So that's what Pisces is all about. So there's a huge focus on that. Again, like I said, do things which are perhaps physical, but also balance you emotionally. Things which balance you emotionally and mentally. Things where you can integrate. Things where you can zone out and just process. Maybe turn off the notifications on your smartphone. Just have a time where you can just allow yourself to do nothing. You don't have to full on meditate, but just, relax. I would strongly advise that at this time, March 11th, 12th, 13th in particular. This is just highlighted even further by the new moon, because new moons in general are a time of manifesting and integrating anyway. So speaking of the new moon, let's go to the chart for the new moon. Looks like it happens. Whoops. Well, yeah, there we go. Oh, sorry, I messed up. Okay, it looks like it happens very early on March 13th. Ow, I keep messing it up. Okay, there. So yeah, very early on March 13th. So maybe depending on where you are, it could happen late on March 12th. But at any rate, there's a new moon in Pisces, and it is very potent just because it is conjunct Neptune to some degree. This is bothering me. There we go. It is conjunct Neptune. I mean, it's 3 degrees away, so I consider that close enough to be conjunct, especially because Pisces is very much Neptune's realm. It just adds to the Pisces themes of this new moon. Venus is there as well. Venus is exalted. It's adding some abundance and positive energy. Love and light energy, I guess, is kind of like Venus in Pisces. Venus wants to love humanity, love the universe when it's in Pisces. That's why it's exalted there. And so yeah, it is adding some positive vibes. It's we can debate on whether that's conjunct or not, but it's within 4 degrees, and so it is definitely adding some Venusian energy here, some abundance and harmony to this Pisces new moon. So I really like that. Venus and Neptune are very, very much at home in Pisces. They're very familiar. They're very functional, very active. And so yeah, this new moon, I pretty much already talked about Pisces themes. So hopefully you know enough about astrology to know the Pisces themes. But just again, super quick, it's manifesting. It's maybe not the most physically active sign, but it's very active emotionally, spiritually. It's all about, it's the last sign, so it's all about processing everything that's happened to you up until now, just integrating and getting all those experiences taken in. But it's doing all that in order to make room and allude to a new beginning, to make way for a new beginning. Pisces can be a time of loss, but it's a time of making way for the new. Out with the old, in with the new. You can see that in nature, where it's winter again is a time of inactivity. It's a time of almost emptiness in a way, but it's making way for the new growth that will come in Aries. So the new moon in Pisces is a time of beginning that process, really getting it going. And sometimes they say, sometimes this can influence weather, so it may feel a little bit more like spring after the Pisces new moon, depending on where you are, whatever that means for your area. The new moon just really enters that sign. Sun going into a sign enters that sign in a sense, but it really, really gets going once the new moon happens in that sign. So it's very much fully Pisces season after March 13th for sure. We are integrating our past experiences and making way for the new. This is an extremely good time for setting your intention, manifesting, thinking about, what do I want for this year? What do I want for this next month? What do I want? Whatever your timeline is, next 6 months or next several years. What do you want? Actually sit down and think about it, because some of us don't actually think about that. We're so busy just responding to whatever is happening to us, getting caught up in the drama. Actually set some time aside for yourself to just relax and integrate, but also maybe just ponder or just integrate what's happening to you, but also write down, what are your intentions? What do you want? What is it that you want to work on? This is an extremely good time, because like I said, not only is Pisces all about that, and we've got some very strong Pisces themes here, but also new moons are about that. They are a time of planting the seed, so to speak. And so it's not a time of actively doing something yet necessarily. It's just a time of setting an intention and beginning that process of birthing something new, starting a new project. Not quite yet, but maybe just setting the intention, brainstorming, like, okay, what is my intention? What do I want? What is it that I would like to achieve in the near future? And then once you get those ideas going, they can take root in your mind, and then they will come to fruition later once the moon gains light especially once the moon enters Taurus and Gemini in several days. Going forward, March 14th, the moon enters Aries, and it pretty quickly conjoins Chiron. That will sort of bring the attention to, it begins a new cycle for sure. It begins a new month. It begins a new lunar cycle, because the moon, it's a fresh new moon, but also the moon is in Aries, and so there's very much a newness, a crisp new energy, maybe a good time to start things. And the moon pretty quickly conjoins Chiron, and Chiron in Aries is all about our own wounds. Our own personal wounds are very open and visible, so we're very much maybe open with our vulnerabilities and seeking that self-healing to some degree. And the moon conjoining this planetoid brings the attention there, so we're very much focused on our own emotions and our emotional wounds, so to speak, or stuff like that. This is sort of minor. Chiron is barely a planet. I'm sorry. It's barely a planet. It's a little subtle. To me, what I've observed is there's an awkwardness. People seem maybe more agitated or more sensitive, more emotional, maybe more prone to misunderstanding. There's more empathy, but also more misunderstanding. I think especially with Chiron and Aries, it's very self-involved, I would say. So, it's awkward. It's a little bit socially dysfunctional. But it's just the moon going over this planet, though. So again, it's very quick. It'll just be for March 14th, and probably not even the whole day. Maybe half the day you'll feel this, just as the moon transits over Chiron. Also, just to take note, on March 14th, we've got Mercury approaching the end of Aquarius. Very much, how fast is it going now? Let me see. Yeah, so it's cruising. It's going like 2 degrees a day. So it's at full speed. That retrograde period is over. That was like almost a month ago now. We're very much going in full speed. All planets direct. Mercury at full speed ahead. So, very much new things happening, especially after the new moon. I don't see it as like, it's not like, it's actually kind of nice because we don't have any super, super big like outer planet aspects where like the whole world is changing dramatically on any given day during this time. There's just a general rhythm, like we're accomplishing a lot in our lives. We're very busy, that type of thing. So maybe more mundane, but I think that's good. We have had already so many big life events and world events happen to us in the recent past that I think this is refreshing. We're going forward with our lives in maybe a normal way, if there is such a thing, especially in this day and age. Okay, going forward, March 15th, Mercury's approaching Aquarius, like I said. Approaching the end of Aquarius, approaching Pisces. It's at the last degree of Aquarius here on March 15th in the morning. So if I am not mistaken, I think that would mean that Mercury would enter Pisces on this day. Yes. So yeah, March 15th, Mercury will enter Pisces. And then again, there's a big focus on Pisces and not so much on Aquarius. Now we have none of the personal planets are in Aquarius as of March 15th. So what that means is the focus for us, especially on a personal level or on a mundane level, is very much more in Pisces than it is in Aquarius now. So we are moving on from those Aquarian themes which dominated most of February. Only the outer planets there. So society and, maybe this mini period, this year or two, are still focused on Aquarius, but the daily rhythm and our personal lives are more on Piscean themes right now. So again, that more manifestation, the more dreamy like energy, communications could get a little bit more dysfunctional with Mercury entering Pisces, because Mercury is so much more functional in Aquarius than it is in Pisces. Mercury is the only planet which is in detriment and fall in the same sign of Pisces, and opposing Virgo, where it's both in domicile and exalted. And so, Mercury is perhaps more fucked up, for lack of better words, in Pisces than any other planet is in any other sign, if that makes sense, because no other planet is both in detriment and fall in the same place. So Mercury does not do well in Pisces. I'm totally gonna rag on Mercury in Pisces right now. It can get confused. It has a hard time with discerning or measuring value, because it sees importance in everything. Its perception is very subjective and very sometimes distorted to its own beliefs or own moods, even very subjective, like I said. So it has a hard time discerning what is important. Mercury in its more exalted form likes to distinguish which thing is the most important, which thing should I prioritize, which thing is greater than this other thing. It's all about measuring and quantifying, and proceeding from there. Mercury in Pisces, it lacks the ability to do that. And so it is good for, approaching things from a more spiritual standpoint, but it's not so good at being factual, being objective. It's not so good at that clear-cut communication, that, that communicating in the maybe standardized or normal way which we expect to communicate, in a way which, where we're easily understood. Let me just make sure. Okay, that would be messed up if I wasn't recording this whole time. But yeah, so it's not like Mercury in retrograde. Things are still moving forward very much so, but Mercury in Pisces just adds to a little bit of dysfunction with our cognitive abilities, I would say. And I'm not dissing on you if you have Mercury in Pisces. You could be a very smart person. It's just that the thinking or the communicating is out of the ordinary at this time. It's dysfunctional just in the sense that it's not like normal, so to speak. So it could be beneficial because we are thinking about maybe obscure ideas or thinking in a way which we wouldn't normally think. And that can be beneficial for, gaining a different perspective. Stuff like that. It's just not so good at that clear, fluid communications, especially communications with people you don't know, communicating with the world. Those sorts of things could be difficult for the next few weeks as Mercury's in Pisces. Also in this chart, March 15th, I can see the moon is approaching the end of Aries. Moon in Aries in general is very volatile. March, 14th and 15th. Moon is almost like in detriment in Aries, just because it's so active emotionally that it's sort of turbulent. The moon isn't comfortable there. The moon likes to be in nurturing, the moon represents our emotions, so it likes to be in more nurturing, stable signs. And Aries is more, the word brazen is coming to mind, or more volatile, more fiery, more active. And so the moon, it doesn't feel safe or comfortable there, so we can feel maybe a little bit agitated, especially on the 14th with moon conjunct Chiron. But March 15th, Venus is also approaching the sun, and I really like that just because Like I said, Venus is exalted in Pisces, so that could bring us good gifts or harmony, more love or compassion for one another, stuff like that. Love of humanity, more spirituality. Could be a good time for like spiritual endeavors, connecting with one another, being emotional and raw in a positive way. Stuff like that. March 15th, we'll start to experience that just with Venus approaching the sun. Okay, and then going forward, March 16th, Moon enters Taurus, where it's actually exalted. So Moon likes being in Taurus because, like I said, Moon represents our emotions, so it functions more highly in signs which are stable and sensitive and nurturing. Taurus is an earth sign and it's fixed, so it's very stable and it can be very nurturing. So our emotions are more grounded for the next couple of days, March 16th and 17th. However, the moon does make a conjunction to Uranus on March 16th, so there could be a little bit of unpredictability. Again, with these lunar conjunctions, lunar aspects in general, they're not super potent. Because again, the moon is very quick, so just on March 16th, there could be a little bit of turbulence, maybe involving finances or something physical in nature, something with resources maybe. I'm thinking maybe finances, but again, it's more of a blip in things. Could be experienced for maybe half of March 16th or so. But in general, we're feeling more grounded and more stable with the moon in Taurus. Also, the moon is beginning to get some light as it gets farther away from the sun, so it will start to become more visible. And as it gets light and becomes a crescent moon, it's the beginning of that lunar cycle. So, again, it's a good time to actually start things. Whatever your intention was on March 13th, it's a good time for actually getting that stuff going on the 16th. Actually starting to do it rather than just theorize or, intend on doing it. Actually start doing it on the 16th, I would say. Moon is exalted and it's gaining light. So it's a good time for actually beginning things, not like, so if you planted the seed on the March 13th, the seed should actually be sprouting and it actually should be visible on the 16th. That's kind of how that metaphor would go. Okay, and what else? March 16th. Yeah, moon conjoins Uranus. Mercury's in Neptune. I kind of covered that already. That's pretty much what I see. Mars is approaching the North Node. Okay, going to March 17th. Honestly, looks like a continuation of the 16th. So we've got the moon still in Taurus. Mercury is entering Pisces. Mars in Gemini. So, so just in general, again, March 16th and 17th, it's just a time for beginning, whatever your intention was on the 13th, actually do it. Get it going. Get some momentum on the 17th. All the planets are direct. The moon is exalted. There's no excuse. Get out there. I guess the one excuse could be Mercury is not in such a great place, but other than that, everything is supporting. Get out there, do something new. It doesn't have to be big and life changing. Just get out there and start a new project, whether it be for fun or for work, or meet someone, whatever it is. It's almost kind of spring like energy. We're almost to spring in a way, even though we do have a stellium in Pisces. So it's a transitional period. But it's a transitional period, but one of beginnings, I would say. Okay, March 19th, or March 18th. Still the same. Moon will enter Gemini on, I think, very late March 18th or early on the 19th. And let's go to like noon-ish. So March 19th, the sun... It's the last day of the year in an astrological context, I guess, because we consider the year sort of ending in Pisces. Pisces is the last sign, and so March 19th is just before the spring equinox, so it could be kind of intense. The last degree of Pisces is the most intense degree of the whole cycle, I would say. So it's the culmination in the sense, or the ending. It's very much making way for the new. It could almost be like a death in some sense. Probably not literally, but like nature sort of dies to be reborn, I guess. But by the beginning of spring, spring will be in full bloom. Nature will be in full bloom, I guess, too. But depending on what latitude you are, it should fully be in spring by the time we get into Aries. It's very much a time for beginning things. Also, March 19th. So that's not, yeah, I'm kind of jumping ahead. March 19th is still just the end of Pisces, but that's what we're getting set up for. Okay, but March 19th, we do have the moon conjoining Mars real quick in Gemini. Again, it's the moon. It's a quick aspect. There is an emphasis on air just because we got Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius, moon and Mars in Gemini. So again, it's a lot of non-physical stuff. Ideas, thoughts, emotions. 4 planets in Pisces, 4 planets in air signs. It's non-physical in some sense. There's a focus on thoughts, ideas, concepts, relationships or friendships, spirituality, stuff like that. The more non-physical parts of our reality. Moon conjunct Mars in Gemini could make us very temperamental or argumentative. Could make you funny or sharp-witted. Could make for interesting conversations. But again, Moon is very emotional, and Mars can be a little bit aggressive or competitive. So Mars conjunct the Moon is sort of a very emotionally volatile configuration, and in Gemini, it's in an intellectual context. That's the word. I totally spaced that word. So Moon conjunct Mars in Gemini. It's sort of emotionally volatile or competitive in an intellectual context. But it could be fun too. Like I said, it could be just a time of highly charged social interactions. We desire to be social, or getting out and having lots of different experiences, stuff like that. The North Node is, like I said, generally a positive part of the chart. So as the moon goes over the North Node, we're very much wanting to be busy, get out there, do new things, especially March 20th. It's the beginning of spring. So and the moon is still in its early phases of the lunar cycle. So very much getting out, starting new things. It's March 20th. Happy birthday, Aries. Aries begins, spring begins, a new cycle begins in astrology and in nature. And moon in Gemini just adds to the busyness, and wants to be social, wants to go out doing errands, meeting many different people, doing many different things. Yes. Okay. And continuing on, Sun enters Aries, and the last thing that I'm going to talk about is March 21st, where the moon will square the sun. So March 21st, here it's in the morning, but just sometime on the 21st, depending on where you are. As the moon enters Cancer, once it gets to 1 degree Cancer, it will square the sun. So it'll be a first quarter moon, which is volatile. Quarter moons are volatile. It's time for making changes. The first quarter moon in particular is typically more volatile than the third quarter moon. So it's very much a time for beginnings and changes and, impulsiveness. It could be time of restlessness or stress or anxiety, but as long as it's just the intention of it, or the purpose of it, is to incentivize you to make changes in your life in some way. So whatever areas you're experiencing nervousness or experiencing stress, this is an opportunity to make changes in those areas. However, this in particular, I always notice the first quarter moon in Cancer, with the sun in Aries. I always notice it every year because, in my opinion, it is the most volatile configuration between the sun and the moon. Not only is it the first quarter moon, which, like I said, is probably the most volatile, it rivals the full moon for the most volatile phase of the lunar cycle. But also you've got moon in domicile in Cancer, so it's very strong. Its traits are very exemplified, so it's very emotional. We're very much feeling our emotions. The moon is the planet of emotion and what's going on inside of us, and Cancer is the sign which rules emotion. So it's very much a time where we're very emotionally charged, very looking for our own interests and the interests of our family or those very close to us. It's more of a defensive energy, but we've got the sun exalted in Aries as well, and so it's almost like these two are battling each other because they're squaring. It's a tense aspect. They're not in agreement. They're in two very different energies. Aries is very competitive. It's very individualistic. The sun is exalted there, so it's very strong. The sun is all about the ego. Aries is about the self, so it's very much focused on the self, the individual. It's radical change, impulsivity. Cancer wants to be more conservative, more temperate, more considerate of others close to us. Aries is more focused on the self. There's just a whole bunch of themes which clash here, and both are cardinal, so they're both starting something new, but in completely different directions. They're both different elements. One is water, one is fire, one is yin, one is yang. They are fundamentally incompatible to some extent. So they clash. Water and fire make steam, which causes chaos and confusion. You can't see through steam. It's obscure. And just in general, with so much newness, the cardinal themes, the spring theme, the first quarter moon theme, there's so much new stuff happening, and there's so much different new stuff happening that's not all aligned with with itself. That's where you get this chaos, and that's where I've always noticed this first quarter moon in particular is kind of a doozy. So depending on what your astrology is, but I think for everyone though, I mean, my astrology wouldn't be particularly strong for me, but I always notice it. I think just because it's such a strong thing in general, it will be a time of turbulence, high charged emotions, chaos. But like I said, the positive side of it, or taking advantage of something like this, it would be a good time for starting something new. But if you're starting a new project, I would expect there to be other things starting which aren't aligned with your project, and so you might have to defend your project or combat some unpredicted circumstance or something like that. So it is a good time to start things, but at the same time it's a little bit chaotic, so just be prepared for that. And again, it's not a super big deal. This isn't outer planets we're dealing with. It's just a daily transit, but I would just mark that March 21st a little bit chaotic. Maybe take everything with a grain of salt. Don't get too caught up in the drama. Also just noticed Venus just enters Aries on the same day as well. So yeah, we're very much caught up in ourselves. It's very Aries, very active, very spontaneous, very impulsive, starting new things, starting spring. We've got all this forward moving energy. Venus is in detriment in Aries, so I mean, we could be maybe a little bit self-centered, or that harmony and like world peace energy that Venus in Pisces brought to us sort of ends on the 21st of March when Venus enters Aries. So we're maybe a little bit more self-involved or self-indulgent, or we're pursuing something or someone outside of us because it's something that we desire. So it's by definition it is a selfish energy, but I guess the plus side of this would be self-love. Venus and Aries in a healthy way could just mean like self-love, and hopefully if we truly love ourselves, then we can expand on that and love each other. But yeah, Venus is in detriment there though, so it's worth mentioning. It's getting closer and closer to the sun though, so it's pretty much conjunct, so that does add some degree of harmony, but again, the Venus is in detriment, so I don't know how much harmony it can really bring. It's maybe bringing harmony, but in a very unorthodox way, or unforeseen or unpredictable way, some way that's out of the norm. So some kind of peace, but in an unexpected place. I don't know, it just seems like very dramatic, very theatrical, like making new enemies or making new friends, making friends with an enemy or enemy with a friend, the tables turning, that type of thing. Almost like soap opera energy is kind of what I see for March 20th, but especially March 21st with this Cancer first quarter moon. Soap opera energy, that's what I'd call it. And yeah, that's where I wanted to conclude this video. So again, today is only March 1st, and so I covered all the way through the beginning of spring, and this last part, March 20th and 21st, I'll probably cover in my next video as well, just to keep everyone up to date. So anyway, that's my take on the events. Let me know how I do. Let me know. I like this format better, I think, where I don't have my face on the screen. It lets me, I don't have to do anything with the lighting that way, and I think my sound quality is better this way. I don't know if that matters to any of you guys, but let me know if you have any preferences or what you think of this setup, and let me know how this astrology is going for you. I love to chat with anyone and everyone in the comments, so yeah, so hopefully that's helpful or insightful in some way. And Thanks for watching. I'll see you later. Bye.